Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the build of the Skymaster A10. This is build video number 4 in the series, and last video we got most of the left wing done, and we will be finishing this wing up in the first part of this video, and we will be continuing with the right wing and completing that wing as well too. Now when we do the right wing, what we're going to do is I will show you a bunch of the stuff that we didn't specifically cover on this wing. So stay tuned and we will get started. Alright guys, we're going to clean this up a little bit here before we put the pylons on. So I like to use this wire loom stuff in situations like this, or the snakeskin as well too, but in this case I didn't obviously install the snakeskin, and we have the option of using the wire loom, so or split loom I think is what it's called, I'm not sure. Anyways, we're going to wrap this around the servo wires just to protect them. We only need to go into the wing a couple inches. And then we're going to install our connectors on all of the air connectors here. So once again, we're pretty straightforward on these on the wing. I mean, we're gear up, gear down, black is brake, and these two control the lock. So that should be pretty simple to figure out. Anyways, I'm going to get this all installed here. I'll show you guys the final product. Nothing overly special about that. And then we will move on to the pylons. In this video, I'll also cover, as has been requested, how to do the these connectors, and I'll show you guys exactly how to deal with all that stuff coming up when we do the other wing. All right, guys. So wing connectors are all done. I'll just kind of review here what I do when I put one of these planes together. So I try and make this as simple and foolproof as possible. Sometimes we use colors. In a situation like this, we basically have two different lines. So we've got the lock line and we've got the main gear line. So what we've done here is we've got these Robart style connectors that Skymaster supplies. Gear up and gear down, we've reversed them, so there's no way that you could connect that wrong. And then on the brake, we've used one of these metal connectors with an O-ring. So basically we're going to have a series of lines with these three coming out of the fuselage. They can only go together one way. Then we have another series with two coming out of the fuselage. They can only connect together one way, and then the connectors here themselves, the wiring connectors, they only connect together one way. So it's pretty foolproof when you put that together. So that portion of the wing is complete. All right, guys, next step here is the pylons. So the inboard 3 pylons, 1, 2, 3, are pretty straightforward. These ones are going to be specific to the wings because they've got a really sharp angle to them. This one's specific to the wing as well too, again because of the upward angle of this portion of the wing. This one looks like they're interchangeable, but the bolt or the hard mounting points have already been kind of pre-drilled or pre-marked. So anyways, that but it looks like those are interchangeable, but just keep an eye on that. So anyways, we're going to mount these guys up. These three are going to be pretty straightforward. This one here, we're going to have to do some grinding to make it fit. Now we have C8 and Loctited the clevis here. We've put our keeper on the clevis. So that's all done. Doing the sanding for the horn will be pretty straightforward. But so first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to bolt or screw on the first 3 pylons. So basically all you need to do is double check that your mounting points line up with the pylon, which in this case they do. We're going to pre-drill those holes with a fairly small drill bit. It looks like Skymaster supplies screws here for the mounting of the pylons, so we're going to use those screws and mount these guys up. Everything's all pre-drilled and pre-made, so it's pretty straightforward. Obviously, one of the simple checks here is your keyholes should be open at the front, and when you mount your ordnance on, it will slide backwards, right? So, but that's hopefully gives you some idea on how to mount those guys. Pretty straightforward. So next step, pre-drill those things. We're going to screw into them, put some CA in there, and get those guys all mounted. All right, guys, so we've got our 3 pylons mounted. Those all went on quite easy. Now this last one, this is the one I was talking about that I think the holes are drilled incorrectly. So best way to do this, I found, is to actually put your mounting screws through the pylon to get things lined up. Reason for that is you may have some angles or something on the holes, and that'll change your screw position. So it also makes it easier just to take a look at. So as I mentioned before, I knew that our hole spacing was not correct. So you can see it there. We're probably maybe 4 millimeters on each one that we need to come back. So we need to adjust that. But before we do that, we want to make sure we take these screws out and see how it fits on the wing itself. So I'm going to kind of play around with that and see what happens. Once I'm happy with the mounting of that and the position of it, then what we need to do is we need to work on our cutout. So it looks pretty straightforward. We're going to be pretty much down the center of the pylon here. So I think as a first step, we're just going to chop out the end of the pylon right there and kind of cut out some of the middle. So we're going to keep it tight at first, and then we'll adjust as we need to. All right, guys, so there's the cutout there on the back side, and then you can see the channel there as well. Essentially, we're going all the way to the hard point that connects the wing to the pylon. So now that's where it's going to sit, like that. So looks good. The next thing we have to do is we're going to have to adjust our holes here. So the pylon does fit well on the wing in a certain spot. So you can see it kind of fits well right there. If we go too far forward, there's a gap on the front. So that is really going to be our determining factor on where that pylon sits in relation to the hole. So if we set it beside the wing, it's pretty much... So the way it kind of works out here is this one we want to mount in the center of that hard point. This one's going to be back a little bit. So we're going to have to do a little bit of balancing there, but I think we should have enough material on that hard point for us to hit that that mark there with the forward screw. So anyways, I'll get that fastened. Nothing too complicated, pretty straightforward, and that'll be all the pylons mounted. All right, guys, left wing is complete. So I've been talking with the owner of the plane, and he definitely agrees that this thing needs some weathering. This plane looks quite sad with no weathering on it. The A10s are always like dirty and grungy, and this thing looks like a toy right now. So we will be weathering this plane probably either this winter, or we may do it during this build near the very end. So wait for that. We'll find out more exactly what we're doing. But left wing is done. So what we're going to do now is we are going to do the right wing. So the right wing, I'm not going to show you guys most of the process, but I will show you a couple things. So what I will make sure I show you is how to do these connectors. So I'll show you exactly how to get those all wired up and how to work the connectors and things like that. So stay tuned for that. And I may show you a couple other tidbits from the right wing, but that's what we're going to be working on next. So let's go to the right wing. All right, guys. So we are going to do these ash lock connectors. So this is all the stuff that we need to get the wing connector set up. As I've talked about previously, with the ash lock connectors, there are male and female connectors. The ones I like to use on the wing itself is this one, which ends up having the pins installed in the connector itself. And as I've shown you in previous videos, you've got these pins sticking out, which you can then plug a servo lead onto and plug into your receiver, and then you've got full control of your wing. So we need the ashlock connectors. I've marked this one to match the connector that we did on the other wing already. So we've got speed brake, aileron, flap 1, flap 2, and then I've marked a little white mark here, and that's for our orientation of our wires. So we're going to go white, red, blue, white, red, blue, white, red, blue, white, red, blue, all the way across. Okay, so we've got that. We need our little pin connectors, right? So I've got a bunch of those already opened up and in the little package here. So I'll take those out. We need 12 of them. Okay, so there's our connector pieces. We obviously need some wire. If you've watched the previous videos, these wires matched the left wing that we did already. So we've got two longer pieces here for the aileron and speed brake. We've got a middle one here for flap number 2 and a shorter one here for flap number 1. So those are all of our wire sections. We need a pair of wire strippers. Now these are, I'm definitely not sponsored by Klein Tools. Klein Tools, if you want to sponsor the channel, I wouldn't say no. So the Klein Tools ones, which are nice wire cutters, and we've also got all the smaller gauges, so 16 to 26 gauge listed on the wire strippers. So a nice pair of wire strippers is helpful. If you use crappy wire strippers, it's going to make for a poor cut. So and these are not specifically PowerBox, but these are, I know PowerBox sells them, and these are nicer crimpers. I've used some other crimpers out there and was not happy with them, partly because you get used to a certain set of crimpers, but anyways, these are the crimpers that I use to make my connections. So let's go through how to make these connectors. So I'll do flap number 1 first, and flap number 1 is going to be the short wire connector. So the first thing I do is I strip about 3 millimeters of housing off the wire. So hopefully you can see it there. It's not much, but you got to remember that when you put this all together, the wire itself is getting crimped in that part of the connector, and the bent screwdrivers help here. Okay, so the wire itself, so the copper conductor, is getting crimped in this part of the connector. This part of the connector is supposed to go over the sheathing or the housing. So if you take off too much housing, it's not necessarily the worst thing, but your connection's more susceptible to breaking from wire fatigue. You want to get that crimped on the housing. So that's kind of where you're lining it up, right like that. And you want to be able to see that when you put it inside your crimper. So I'll show you guys how I do this. So I take all the sheathing off the one end. So there we go, they all match. Then what I'll do is I will twist those wires so they're nice and snug. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is get our pin installed in the crimper. This is a little bit hard to show you. Now the reason I say it's hard is because obviously I'm missing some digits on my left hand. So I actually end up using my chest a lot for doing stuff like this, and that's just because of my disability. But what I'll do is hold these crimpers on my chest, and that's probably why I like these ones. Okay, and just get the pin started. So it's not sticking through that side at all, and that's where it's sitting on the other side. Now if you take these pins, these ashlock pins, and you come too far out on this side, it's actually going to crimp this end kind of funny, and it'll put a bend in it that's a little bit difficult to deal with. So that's how I do that. And then what I do is I take my wire like this. So I'll do the red one first because that's what I grabbed. I'm obviously switching hands with the crimper tool. We're going to put it in there. And then I'm looking from the other side, trying to capture this on camera for you. Okay, looking through the other side, and I'm getting it lined up where I want to crimp that copper conductor. Once I'm good, you squeeze your crimps all the way, and that's our connection right there. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the pin to clamp onto the sheathing and the second section here to clamp onto the wire. So that is a perfect connection there. So I'm going to do these other two, and then I will show you installing this into the connector. Okay guys, so we've got all of our pins installed here on the one end of the wire. So now I'll show you putting this into the Ashlock connector. Now I'll show you kind of a couple things here with the different wire colors. We've got the power box, the new leads that come with some of the gyros. So you've got white, which is signal, red, and blue. Red is positive, blue is negative. So that's the layout on the power box. Okay, on high-tech connectors, or what I know as high-tech connectors, your yellow is your signal wire, then you've got red and black. Okay, so that's how it relates to the different connectors. So the power box wire is the same thing as this servo lead where you've got white, red, and blue. So we've got signal, positive, negative. Okay, so that's how we're treating these things. So what we want to do, because this is flap number 1, okay, all we're going to do is we're going to take our Ashlock connector. Now you'll see that there is these little square holes here, okay, and there's nothing on the other side. So on the Ashlock connectors, or pins, there's a little tab that sticks up right there. Okay, that little tab goes into that little square, and that's what holds it in place. Now, when we lay out our wires, we're starting with white because that's where I marked it. Okay, so we're going to come through, like this. So we're going with white first. And you'll hear it click, and you can pull on it, and you'll know what's in there. Our next one is red. And our next one is blue. I'm just going to unwind this around the red one because it's a little bit snug. Okay, so that is our flap number 1. Okay, we're in the right spot there. And now, if we want to connect this once it's all connected, we just take our servo end, plug it in there. Be careful with this because it's not limited or anything. It can go in both ways, and that allows us to plug it into our receiver. Okay, so that is how we do these Ashlock connectors. So what I'm going to do here, guys, is I'm going to finish the rest of these connectors on the Ashlock end, and then what I'll do is I will go and I will put our female ends that the actual servo is going to plug into on the other end, because when you fish this through, you want to have somewhere to plug the servo into. So that's how we do these connectors. I'll go through and I'll do these the rest of them, and I'll show you the final result, what we're looking at. All right, guys, wiring harness is all made up. So we've got the same pattern on all 4 of our connection points there, and then we've got the different wiring lengths going all the way throughout the wing. So now what we're going to do is we're going to fish these lines through. We obviously have to put 2 in this section, 1 and 1. So I'm just running my metal wire through there, hooking it up and pulling them on through. All right, guys, well, we've got the flaps done on the second wing. The gear is installed. We don't have the scale bits on yet, but obviously the pod's installed. Flaps were super easy to set up in the XBus menu. So again, just these two are set up as XBus servos. Put the servo arm in the same spot as the other wing, and basically everything just lined up. I think I had to turn this ball joint here about a turn and a half, and everything's perfect. This one worked out amazing. So now we're moving on to the aileron and speed brake on the right wing. So a couple things that I told you I was going to show you is the reinforcement here for the aileron horns, which get mounted right there. So first thing I checked though is the amount of movement. So last wing we had to trim this piece off about 4 to 5 millimeters to get enough travel. This one, when we measure it, we actually get the same amount of travel as the other wing. So we don't need to do any trimming on this one, which is good, one step saved. But what we need to do is we need to open up this section right here and take a look at what's inside. So if you look at that section right there, so there's a balsa piece in there. I'm not sure if this wing is done differently than the other one, but that's why we're going to open this little spot up here and inspect what is behind this area. So it's pretty straightforward as far as lining this up goes. You've got your scale details here. The horns mount right there. So we just open up that wall right behind this piece. So that's what we're going to set up right now. All right, guys, well, these wings are both very different. Obviously, we could have made this cleaner, but we're going to patch that up anyways. But in the other wing, this hard point was not there. So it was shifted over a little bit. It wasn't in the right spot. So anyways, I can't show you what I did, but basically on the other wing, we just added some more points. But on this one, they got the hard point. It's mounted from here to there, and our horns go in right here. So we're just going to catch that that hard point, which is great. So unfortunately, there's inconsistencies between the two wings, but nothing too crazy. So we'll patch that all up with some epoxy and stuff. But now we know that we've got hard points to mount those horns to. All right, guys, so just like the other wing, we basically copied everything we did here. So step one was to get the servos installed and connected. We draw a straight line from the aileron servo, mark the center point, and mount our control horns for the ailerons. We did the air brake servo exactly like the other one, and got the carbon horns mounted exactly like the other one. So the high sol is on there, it's all curing, and now we just need to wait for that to cure. We are going to paint the inside of the air brake red. On the A10s, it's pretty inconsistent if you look at pictures. I don't know if there's a rhyme or reason to it, but I have seen a few of the planes with the inside of the air brake red, and I think it looks really sharp. So the owner wants it done that way, and I'm happy that he is okay with that. So anyways, we'll do that. Basically, once these the high sol sets here, we're going to get the aileron and air brake set up, and then get the rest of the scale details done on the wing. So with that, of course, we've got the servo hatch covers, we've got all the pylons to mount, and then the last kind of scale details that we have to put on is those things. Now, I know you guys have corrected me before. I can't remember what they're called. They're sitting over there on the bench right there. Anyways, we have to get those mounted on the root of the wing on the leading edge, and we still have a little bit of gear stuff to do on this wing. So anyways, while we're waiting for paint to dry, or glue to dry, or cure actually is the better way to say it, we'll be back. All right, guys, everything with the right wing, the base portion is done. I also painted the air brake sections there on both wings. I just painted that one, so it's just drying. So that looks really cool. Last thing to do on these wings is to figure out this piece here. Please comment below if you know what these things are called. I know a bunch of you guys do. I forget. So anyways, we're going to get those kind of measured out and figured out and see what we need to do about mounting those. All right, guys, so a couple things here with these pieces. Basically, hopefully this shows up here. The profile only fits really one way. Now, the trailing portion of this inner piece here, right there, okay, that essentially lines up with this panel line on the wing. And I know that that carries all the way down because if I go like this and get the edge flushed up and then tip this up, I can see, if I look down there, that when that's following the profile of the leading edge of the wing, it lines up with the panel line on the wing. Okay, so we know that as long as we're following the profile all the way down, we should be good. So that's step number one, kind of figured out. We want to get those flush with the kind of outside of the root of the wing here. And now all we need to do is figure out how we are going to mark the mounting pieces right here. So we basically just need to Dremel some grooves. There is no markings on the leading edge of the wing, so I just need to get an idea of how we're going to figure that out, and then we'll be able to Dremel those holes and get these glued into place. All right, guys, all I did was essentially get this lined up where it needs to go along with that panel line, come through the front here with my Sharpie, and just mark a little dot where these pieces are. So now we've got number one, number two. So if I Dremel a straight line going back towards that panel line for whatever the spacing is here, that should work out perfect. So you don't need to be stressed out to cut into the leading edge of the wing. This type of stuff is meant to go in there. You know, we're going to keep that groove nice and small, and then we are going to high saw this all in place so it will be just as strong, if not stronger, than the way the wing is right now. All right, guys, and there's our grooves. Yes, I had a bit of an oops there. It was just the Dremel bit wiggling side to side. Anyways, those are done. Now we do actually have view or access from the inside here. You can see the light coming through. So this is carbon in here as well too. So there's carbon in the entire layup, and that'll make this nice and strong. So we should be able to get enough glue in there, no problem. If we do have issues, we can also add some glue from the whole side here as well. So when you're dealing with carbon dust, always a good idea to have a vacuum. So I hold the vacuum here while I'm using my Dremel. Make sure you do that. And we also want to make sure we roughen these areas up as well too, so we get a good bond with the high saw to these pieces. So I'm going to get those glued in, and we'll do this to the other wing as well too. All right, guys, both of the things have been glued on, and there's that one. So we're just waiting for those to cure, and then essentially the wings are complete. Don't forget, guys, rtlfasteners.com. If you go to their website and use my discount code, which is right put on the screenshot there, JV30, you get 30% off your order of $25 or more. We've used a bunch of these kits assembling these wings on the A10. So check it out, rtlfasteners.com, discount code JV30. All right, guys, we are 4 videos in if you include the unboxing video, and we are done with the wings for this aircraft. So on the A10, a lot like the F-18, this is a big step in the completion of the plane. There's a lot going on these wings, so this is a large step done on this build. So next video, we are going to be moving on to the horizontal stab and also the verticals or the rudders, and that's going to be what we start on the next video. Got confirmation today from the owner that we will be weathering this aircraft. Not entirely sure when, but we will be weathering this aircraft so it looks a lot less like a toy, so we'll do a video about that as well too. So thanks guys for tuning in. If you have any questions, list them down below. Reach out to me by email, thelightersideofrc@gmail.com, and we will see you in the next video.